It's finally here, my fellow Chibits. My first impressions of Claymore Volume 1. It's been long requested for a very long time, and this is a manga series that was given to me by a fellow Chibit called Dell. Dell has been sending me a couple volumes recently of Claymore, and I did promise him I would eventually come around to actually getting to read this and review it, and so I decided to give it a shot since I have free time, since, anime's starting to end. Even though Gangsta is going to be coming out later today, I still had a little bit of free time, so I decided to sit down and read Claymore and just see what it all is about. I've heard it's like the female version of Berserk, and when anything's tied to Berserk and it's like a female version of Berserk, I'm just gonna I'm going to read it. And I finally got time, sat down and read it, so this is going to be my first impressions, and I'm going to try to keep it as spoiler-free as possible. There is going to be spoilers, so I do recommend actually reading this volume before you continue on with this video, but I want to try to keep the spoilers down to a minimum, because this is like a recommendation slash first impressions, and it's just to see if you guys are interested in this series. So, what is the main premise of Claymore, and why does it get the title of, like, the female version of Berserk, which I'll get into that last, but what is the premise? So, Claymore, obviously, it seems to be a shonen manga, because it has, Shonen Jump Advanced on the side, and right off the bat, it doesn't really feel like a shonen. Like, the world setup and the theme of it, the premise and everything, it does not really feel much like a shonen, from what I've already seen. It actually does remind me a lot of Berserk, the way it is started in this first volume, which I will explain. But getting back on the topic of the premise, the story is about these Yoma creatures that are around the world. Like, they've been around since ancient times. These Yoma, I guess you can classify them as demons. That's what these Yoma are. And these Yoma have always preyed upon humanity. They've always killed and ate humanity, and humanity couldn't fight against them because they're so overpowered and strong. And so, in the act of trying to find a way to rebel and fight against these Yoma, humanity devised a plan to where they can make these creatures called Claymores, and that is the title some of these creatures have been given. And these Claymores specifically are half human, half Yoma. For instance, those creatures that were devouring humans, well, humans decided to put the blood and some of the flesh of Yoma inside of humans to turn them into a half-breeds to where they could combat and fight against the Yoma to save humanity. And this is where the very interesting part about this, story is set up. Supposedly, the only people that can be half Yoma, for instance, people that are Claymore, title drop right there, is females. Only females can be Claymores, which it changes the overall assumption of what the series is going to be about, because when you come down to reading, like, shonen, like, when you read shonen or something, it's always, usually, it's not always, like, not 100% of the time, but most of the time, when it comes to shonen, it's always a main male character as the lead. And from what we can see is our main character is a female character called Claire, which is very different from what you normally see nowadays, because if you think about it, it's a rarity to see a main female character as the main lead. I mean, you could say Lucy is the main character of Fairy Tail, which she is actually. A lot of people think it's Natsu. Lucy is the main, but she doesn't really shine as much as, other characters in the series. But I'm glad and happy to see how there is a main female character called Claire that's a bit of a badass being the main. I like that because, like I said, it's rare. It's so rare to see a female character being a badass, being the main character of a shonen. I mean, I know there's more out there. I know there is. I haven't read everything, but from what I have read, it's still a rarity from what I have seen. And my first impressions, already like it. Already like our main character. She's very quiet. She's very silent. Like, she's a silent character that seems to have a troubled past. Like, her circumstances from her past led her into what she is for turning into, like, a half-breed Yoma. It's because, from what we found out from some of her past stories, this is going to be spoilers, by the way, in her backstory and characterization of this volume right towards the end, we find out before she turned into, a half-breed, she lost her brother. Her brother was Yoma. For instance, got turned into a Yoma. Like, her brother was invaded. Like, his body was invaded, and then ate Claire's parents, or their parents, and then tried to eat Claire, and Claire had a Claymore eventually save her and kill her own brother that was trying to eat her, when it wasn't really her brother, because, the Yoma got inside of her brother and controlled his body. And so Claire, I guess, was traumatized at that event and became a Claymore to be able to fight against these creatures that preyed upon her family. And you can kind of see her motivation right there. From what I can tell is Claire's motivation is to eradicate the Yoma just because of what happened to her family. Now, she didn't say that, so this ain't, that type of dialogue going on. I don't really know the endgame of Claire, but that's something you can assume from her personality from the first volume, which I like that quite a bit. It reminds me a lot of Guts. It really does. I mean, not exactly. Not, point A to point B, like, carbon copy of Guts. It doesn't. It does not look like that, but she does, in certain circumstances, remind me of Guts. I mean, she carries a long-ass sword. She does. Like, she carries this big-ass sword that is bigger than her body. It's a Claymore, and that's kind of why these, half Yoma have been called Claymores, because they hold giant-ass swords way bigger than their body. And that right there just instantly reminds me of the Black Swords. And I'm like, that reminds me of fucking Guts, man. Holding a damn sword bigger than your body. And there's a lot of setup in the first volume. A lot of setup for the future, and coming to find out some foreshadowing of what most likely is going to happen to our MC of the series. So this is going to be spoiler territory I'm getting into right now, which I've already kind of spoiled a couple things, but this is getting into spoiler territory now. We're going to find out if these half-breeds, these Claymores, continue to use their Yoma abilities, for instance, use their demon side, eventually they will break. What I'm getting at is their mind will shatter, their human self will shatter, and the Yoma inside of them will take control of them and completely overcome them. Now, it's not necessarily a similar aspect like, Nine-Tailed Fox from Naruto or anything like that. It's not that. What this really is that she has Yoma blood and flesh inside of her. And what that means is just the instinct of the Yoma is just taking over her body, and the human mind is just combating that impulse of the monsters. And that's kind of what is going on here. So, at one point or time, there's going to be a point in the series to where Claire is going to reach her breaking point, where her mind is about to shatter because she can't take it anymore because of the, the hunger and bloodlust of the Yoma inside of her. Eventually is going to take control of her, and she's going to lose her all sense of sanity and have to be killed, which comes into the main point at the end of the volume. You come to find out that Claymores have to hunt down Claymores. And when a Claymore reaches their point of no return, where they're about to break and turn into a Yoma, they send out a black card. This black card is a request to kill themselves. Like, for instance, you send out a black card. Let's say I had a black card and I was about to have my mind shattered. I'll send out my specific black card to my friend, and my friend would come and kill me because I'm about to lose my mind. And the act of this is to where you die as a human, not as a Yoma, if you get my point. It's like, you don't want to die as a mindless monster. You want to choose when you die and how you die. You don't want to fucking die because your mind went insane and you start eating people all around you. You want to die when you want to die before you're about to break, and that is the main point of what it sets up. So, overall, first impressions of Claymore, I really like the premise of it. It has a good story, good plot, I like the character. The only thing I have to say about the series is the artwork is very simplistic. It is very, very simplistic, but it's very gritty. It looks really good for certain reasons. Like, I like the style, even though it looks very simplistic and some of it doesn't look up to par as some things we see nowadays. It still looks good. And if I'm correct, Claymore is a very old series, if I'm right. I think it is an old series. I don't know how old Claymore is, but if I'm correct, it is slightly old. And so the artwork kind of is understandable if it is an old series. Even if it's not, artwork is not something that really makes me want to drop a series. It's not. I mean, I love fucking Hunter x Hunter to death. I really do. I'd read that Scribble Scrabble all the time if I got a good plot like, Hunter x Hunter did. So, artwork is, it's good, it's a good bonus for a lot of things, but when it comes down to the story and characters, that's what I really look forward to. And so, yeah, I like it. I like the series. It was a good start, a lot of setup, a lot of foreshadowing. I wonder where it's going to go. It does remind me a lot of Berserk. Let's just see if it holds up to the quality of Berserk, or if it does continue to remind me of Berserk. We'll have to see, because there's always things out there that will be better than the last things I read. There's always that chance, and so hopefully Claymore can surpass my expectations. So tell me your thoughts and comments below. You all have a wonderful day or night, wherever you live. Please be safe. Chibi out.